now, from the class of 2007, Anthony Herbacaccio.
How we doing, guys? Stand up again, just because I'm getting tired. I apologize. You can do this. Stand back down, sit down, sit down. So I'm absolutely inspired by what's been said and what I'm sure is about to be said. And I think you guys got checked at one point. You know, I see you guys are all taking notes. No one started taking notes that I saw. And I think we're going to get to that in a second, right? But so what I want to do, because I'm the youngest on stage, 25 years old, 2007. I was here while this building was here. I think this could be as relatable as anything that's going to happen or has happened on stage. So 3 things we're going to talk about today, and I think they're all incredibly relevant. 1 is school, 2 is friends, 3 is sex. Okay? Tell me these 3 things don't play a major role in your life right now. They do, and they will continue to. So first, school. 2 or 3, right? Okay. First, school. You guys want to get 4.0s in college? Not everyone will say yes, but if you want to get a 4.0, that would be a good thing. Raise your hand. Good. Okay. To get a 4.0, this is how you do it. Study hard and study a lot, right? Is that profound? No. Now, study hard, study a lot. First test. You get a 97, you get an 87, you get a 77. You show up to the professor's door before office hours start. He gets there, and you have a list of questions. What went wrong? This is my answer. This is why I answered this way. This is what I thought. This is what you said in class. This is what the TA told me. This is what I expected. Now, with all this work that I've done, please explain to me what a proper answer would look like. Ideally, you're there for an hour, maybe 2 hours, right? And 2 things happen after that event. 1, teacher says, shit, man. This kid really cares. This kid put in the time. And the other thing is, like, I lost 2 hours. I'm a teacher. I lost 2 hours. I got to think if I'm going to give you a 97 or a 100 next test. Do I want him to come back and spend 2 hours with me next Wednesday, or do I want to give him 100? Is that crazy? Maybe, right? But you set the tone and you did the work. And it's not some BS. You didn't go in there and you play semantics. Like, you showed that you knew what you were talking about. You showed that you did the work. And when the time comes, it's gonna come back. It's gonna receive you by as much as you put in will come back to you. Next, we're gonna talk about friends, right? So I think Jim Rohn, some people on stage might have heard of him. I doubt you guys have yet, but you should. Jim Rohn said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? I'm willing to bet that there's sort of clusters. I have counted about 81 in here. I imagine there's 100 and something in the class, but I'm going to imagine these guys are boys, you guys are boys, you guys are boys. The 5 people near you, I'm sure are great guys, right? I'm sure the last 4 years have been fantastic. The question is now, where are you going and where do you want to be going? And the 2 things could be different, right? And so in college, on the football team, on the lacrosse team, whatever it is that you're doing, the people who are directly around you, the people that you read the most, right? What websites are you on? Who are you listening to? If you're not listening to podcasts yet, you guys are wasting time. But the people that you allow to influence you will dictate where it is that you're going. You want to be the baddest guy on the football team? Get near some upperclassmen who are working hard and just stay near them. Work ethic is something that you can acquire, that can be trained, right? Like, if I want to be better, I'm spending more time with these guys, okay? Not necessarily my classmates who hate what they're doing, who are analysts on the street and, like, are miserable. They make $80,000 this year, but, like, the hour worked versus life quality, like, that's not for me. So you got told I'm about to be a millionaire, or I'm going to be a millionaire. I want to tell you something real quick, full transparency. I have $100,000 in debt. I am not even, you guys are closer to being millionaires than I am. Numbers. That's transparent, right? But I'm hanging out with guys like this. And I'm surrounding myself with people in my demographic that are going to be guys like this. And that's something you want to think about when you're about to go into a new school. You get to reposition yourself. You get to show people who it is that you want to be, and those people are going to come meet you, and you can go meet them. Right? So I went to a school that literally no other Dale Barton student has ever gone. One kid went to one semester, who's a couple years younger than me. Ursinus College. Who's even heard of it? That's incredible. I was the only kid in my class that had ever heard of Ursinus College. Everyone goes to the Centennial Conference, or a lot of people do. A lot of people go to Dartmouth, Ivy, Princeton, Holy Cross, right? I'd never even heard of Ursinus College. I ended up going to Ursinus College. I vividly remember it was in AP Psych. There was a whole conversation that happened, a couple people next to me laughing at the name Ursinus College. It's a funny name. Weird name. And then saying, like, that's going to be a waste of time. No network, right? So I was faced with a decision. Like, how am I going to use the choice I made? I got to play lacrosse 4 years. I got to be super involved on campus. I got to be in leadership roles right away. I played 4 years of lacrosse. A lot of people get to go to college and participate or be on a team. I played 4 years, okay? And I did the things I did, and I grew into the roles that I was able to fulfill and take on campus because I chose, this is a senior that I respect. This is a junior that I respect. This kid does more stuff on campus than I thought you could. He's an actor. He's an athlete. He worked in the admissions office. I became that guy because I was up that kid's ass for 3 years. And when he finally graduated, I embodied him. I took on that role, and I got to start mentoring younger people to pull them into a position that I was in. The 5 people that you spend the most time with, that you allow to influence you, will dictate, in part, where you're going. And that's a big thing, because 25 years old, I go to alumni functions, and outside of alumni functions, Del Barton kids are everywhere in New York. And the reality is, the majority of them are not happy at 25 years old. And I'm not saying, like, you need to love the work you're doing right away, but there needs to be a trajectory, right? So a lot of people are now in a point where they're saying, I'm doing X, but I have no idea where it's taking me. That's okay. I'd argue that if they were to now, rather than live with some kids who also are doing some version Y and have no idea where that's taking them, if they were to spend more time with people who had an idea of what was next, who were trying new things, who were pushing the envelope, rather than guys who just came home and watched SportsCenter, they would more than likely have an idea of what might come next, or at least be excited about the work they're doing today because they know it's the groundwork for something else. College, it's the same idea. You might hate the classwork you're taking, but if you spend time with people who have the next step in mind or are in the next level, you're going to have a better idea of what comes next. The last thing is sex. I don't want to necessarily say girls, right, but sex. Everyone's thinking about it, and now it's how do you get the person you want, right? How do you get that? And what I found is that if you want the girl, be the guy the girl wants. Right? So, like, if it's not silly, right? It's funny and it sounds silly, but if you want something, be the type of person that something wants. Okay? And that doesn't mean be the dick or to be a badass, but be interesting. Right? Have stuff to talk about. Dress well. Compliment her. Right? There are little things you can do that make the girl want you. Right? It's laughable, but it's, I think, pretty profound. Like, if you're in a room and having a hard time figuring out who to talk to, maybe it's because you have nothing to talk about. If girls don't care to be around you, friends don't necessarily go out of their way. Be something worth going out of your way for. for, right? And I think that's something that's kind of a bigger picture than just the girl. So let's step back now. I said level one is academics, bug people. But the foundation of that is do the work, right? You have no ground to stand on. If you go to a teacher and say, you gave me an 87, I deserve 100. If you can't show why you deserve that 100 or that you actually did the work. Do the work. Phase two, friends, right? You don't need to have answers. We talk about reputation, which I think was incredible, right? So networking. I knew none of Steve Bianco. I knew he spoke to me when I was a freshman or sophomore in high school. Trained under Steve at gym. Scott is a year older. I know no one else on this stage. But I'm willing to bet, after the 2 weeks that I've known David Koenig, that if I were to ask for a recommendation, or if he were to talk to anyone, and my name came up, he's got my back. And I believe it's because of the work I've done, and because I've surrounded myself with people for a very long time that inspire me, that make me want to be a better version of who I am. Okay? Within your reach. Step three is if you want something, if you even have an idea of who she might be or what it might be the type of person that gets that. Okay? There is a 21-year-old kid who just sold some company to Facebook for $3 billion. Okay? I want to be that kid. Quote, I want to be that kid. No, I don't. Because the reality is he didn't just show up and get paid $3 billion. For the last, I imagine, 9 or 10 years, he's been sitting on a computer coding. No questions asked. It's the only way you can create something that sells for $3 billion. My skill sets are not coding. They will never be coding. My skill sets are not finance. They will never be finance. But I've been putting in work, right, to position myself to be the type of person who gets what it is I'm looking for, okay? So whether it's the girl, right, whether it's the internship, whether it's the job, or whether you want to be an entrepreneur like a lot of these guys on the stage right now, you have to ask what type of person becomes that type of person. What kind of person becomes a millionaire under 30 years old? And the reality is, it's not the person who just sits down. It's not the person who throws that piece of paper out, okay? You don't need to reach out to anyone on the stage, but a couple of you might, okay? A couple of you might come up and talk to these guys after the event. A couple of you might do some due diligence, find them on LinkedIn, research a couple things, remember a part of their story, and ask a specific question that makes them now interested in you. These guys are the girls, okay? Right. If you want this to be part of your life, make yourselves interesting. Okay, there's a kid and this will be, I guess, one of the last things. I used to work at a gym, and I've been back recently, and there's an intern. He's a rising sophomore in college, and I said, what do you do? What do you do as an intern? There weren't interns there when I worked there. And he's like, well, I get to watch programming, and I get to, in a couple weeks, my training is going to change, and I get to be a part of writing that. And I was like, oh, cool. He does nothing. Okay? So the reality from where I stand is that if you want, he's like, well, what do you want? I said, what do you want? He goes, I want to have a facility like this when I'm older. Cool. Here are some ideas from the hip. I said I was in between squat sessions, right? And I said, from the hip, what are you doing today that adds value to the owner? Are you sweeping the floor? Are you putting weights back? And he's like, I don't normally do that. So maybe you should do that. Because the reality is, like, if you're observing all summer, and if you get to learn about your programming, that's great. There's no reason why you would be back the next summer. You've done nothing. You've put no money into the pocket of the person who is giving you that opportunity. You literally just spent a time drain. And that's what interns are supposed to be. How can you differentiate? Put weights back. You can come with questions. You can make your time valuable and make the owner's time valuable by figuring out how to add value. He's in some sort of a not necessarily kinesiology, but a type movement sciences or something. I said, what if you were to organize a free movement science clinic and you did all the marketing and you put it all together and you had someone guest speak because everyone's trying to be a speaker somewhere, and you allowed the gym you're working for to be now known as a place where presenters come to talk about cutting-edge movement sciences, and now the owner of the gym looks badass. Wouldn't that be something that you think would get you an internship the following summer? Or get you a hell of a recommendation when you ask for it? He's like, yeah, man, that makes a lot of sense. The takeaway, and I think it was said before, but the takeaway is be proactive. Okay? If you want something, be the type of person who gets it. And I was already open with you, $100,000 in debt. I've made no money, but I've started a lot of things. And I deal with fear, and I deal with the uncertainty of situations. An email came out, said, actually, I wasn't even on an email. I was at an alumni event 2 weeks ago, and I overheard someone talking about career day. Jumped at it. What did I have to say? What I planned to say was very different. I just realized that nothing was necessarily tangible to take away. This year, next year, what can you do right now? A lot of stories in it. Some people like what to do right now. The reality is all these guys see opportunity and they take it, right? And they've done the work before the opportunity arises to be able to execute and crush the opportunity before them. I am positioning myself, and I believe that you guys should position yourself as well, to see an opportunity and be prepared to have something to say when it arises, to be interesting, and I hope you found some value in what I said. Thank you, guys.